You don't have to be religious to stand on Wisconsin Avenue facing the Church of the Gesu and allow yourself a moment, maybe of appreciation for its neo-Gothic towers and its pointed tympanum, or a moment to admire the Munich stained glass in the massive rosette and the celestry windows. What is perhaps amazing is that this magnificent structure, which could easily be a European cathedral, is located in downtown Milwaukee. I'm Mariano Avila, and you're listening to Speaking Of, a podcast by Milwaukee PBS. Today we're talking about Rafael Baez, the organist, the musician. And that's where we'll join my co-hosts, Lexi Mack and Scotty Myers, talking about, well, organs.
What is your relationship to the organ, if any? Who wants to go first?
I love the organ. I actually have organ records in my vinyl collection, both sort of like loungy swing organ music. I also have honky-tonk saloon piano music. I am a big fan of organ-orientated jazz. So one of my favorite artists is Jimmy Smith. I just remember like growing up, my grandpa had an organ, and it was one of those like toy things where you'd flip little switches and all of a sudden little waltzes or oompa tempos would play and stuff, and I would just play on it for hours. I never realized until like right now that I have like a closer affinity to the organ than I thought I did.
Yeah, I was going to say Scotty just is an enthusiast of so many different things that it is always hard speaking after him because I am the complete opposite where I'm like, I know nothing about this instrument. When I think of the organ, I think more so to my cousin who went to like a Lutheran church. I feel like I probably would hear some hymns in those settings more often. So completely opposite of Scotty, but you gotta love how passionate he is about all the different things. He knows so much about so many different things.
Go look up Jimmy Smith. Go look up Joey DeFrancesco. Go listen to some Hammond organ jazz. Oh, baby, it's good. It's so good. Dude,
I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do that just because you were so excited about it. I want to be excited too.
I think I'm like right in the middle of you two. I grew up in churches because my dad was a pastor. And so I grew up in churches that had organs. And so there was always the organist, and they were generally the choir or music director for the church. So my whole life I've gone to churches that played an organ. But I can't say that I have a very particular relationship to the organ myself. And I had a hard time until I actually went to visit Dean Rosko to get into that instrument.
My name is Dean Rosko. I'm the director of music and organist.
And where are we?
We are at the Church of the Gesu in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Dean Rosko has been the organist at the Gesu since 2011. And as we hear about his work and about the organ, I'm going to place myself in his shoes because in some ways, he's as close as I can get to Rafael Baez, the organist. I mean, no one alive today has any direct memories of Baez. But we know he played at churches and synagogues around town, including the Gesu, back when Marquette University was Marquette College, where he was also the first Latino professor. And we're going to talk specifically in the choir gallery, an inner balcony, a story above the pews, in the back of the church, where the organist faces the massive rosette, that rose-shaped stained glass window that resonates with every note he plays.
What is it about organs that you were like, oh, that's the thing I want to do?
We had my grandmother's piano in the house and her accordion, so I picked that up for a while, took some lessons because it was a different sound and a different thing to do, and I discovered the pipe organ, and it's a whole lot of different sounds at once, and it's and certainly you get to an instrument that's this size, there's a lot of tonal possibilities and variety and certainly power. And this organ is the largest pipe organ in the state of Wisconsin. There's a 4-manual console. A manual is a keyboard, and it's a home for all of these stops in their divisions. And 6,804 individual pipes. The longest are 32 feet, and the shortest have a speaking length of less than an inch.
What are the two most different sounds? And I don't mean just in terms of like the scale and the register of it, but voices.
The quietest voice in the organ is a stop called the Ludwig Tone. And it's from the 30s. It was made by a company called Volter Holtkamp Sparling, and it's very quiet. very meditative, contemplative, that sort of thing. On the other end of the spectrum, we have the solo reed chorus.
That's a significant difference.
They both make the hair on the back of your neck stand up in kind of a different way. So the lowest tones, I don't know if we'll be able to pick a lot of this up. But it's kind of tough to record that.
What was interesting is it made other things resonate. So it clearly vibrates the whole building.
Yes, correct. Those sort of make the whole church move. There's, on the other end of the spectrum, there's very high pitch. And also very low pitch here, too.
Wow.
So that doesn't sound like anything really by itself. It sounds kind of like a helicopter, actually. But once you get a lot of things going, and that's under a lot of other things, it's a thrilling effect.
As an organist, like, what is the life of an organist? Because, I mean, we know Baez came here and he was music director in different places. He was an organist at different places, taught at Marquette. Mm-hmm. What does an organist's job look like proper?
The best piece of advice I ever received was to make your living as a musician to be as versatile as possible. Just be as flexible and as versatile as possible. So I'm actually in season 20 as the organist of the Milwaukee Brewers. I do that. I play for the Milwaukee Admirals hockey team. I'm here, whatever else I can pick up. I've been on staff at the Organ Piper out in Greenfield since 2004 or something like that. And I'm not playing there a whole lot regularly anymore, but sort of when they need me, which is good. I enjoy that too. It's performing in another environment, and it's certainly more intimate than the ballpark, and it's in the pop style rather than in the liturgical or classical style.
So you play like show tunes and pop tunes on the organ?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What would you say is the thing that you play that is most comfortable and most like kind of showcases the instrument best?
Well, for this, maybe something from the Victorian era, huh?
Let's do it.
Late 1800s. This is Father Scots and Clark, called March au Flambeau, or the Torchlight March.
On that lovely note, it's time to check back in with Scotty and Lexi.
You mentioned something that I thought was really important. You say, like, oh my gosh, when he was playing those low notes, you were saying how it resonated everything else in the actual physical instrument, but also probably the room and your body. And I feel like that is such a good metaphor for your story, right? Like, we think about history reverberating from the past into our current moment and how it shapes the trajectory of our lives and our future. You know, Rafael Baez was playing in that very church a century ago, and now sort of those same vibrations are ringing forth today in that space you shared with Dean. I mean, that's special. I mean, we talk about the history always being in sight. I mean, what better example than that right there?
And you're up on this balcony, and when he hits those low notes, you can feel the organ under your feet. You can see it kind of rattling the windows.
Back in February 2021, Black Nouveau did a special called Milwaukee's Black Churches, and we actually interviewed Dr. Wallace Cheatham, and he was an organist for the St. Mark AME Church for like over 30 years. He just passed in October of 2021, so we spoke to him before he passed. But in his interview, I remember him saying that just the musical training that a lot of churches once had, as far as the musicians that would come in. They were, really esteemed musicians. Now a lot of churches don't have that.
When I think about organ music, and particularly the church setting, it's one of those mediums where it is intensely private but also communal at the same time, which I think not many things achieve that.
And that sense of intimacy that we get from both the private and the communal is exactly what we wanted to achieve with these chronicles, these cronicas, me particularly with the Latino community. But I found that whatever one can call the Hispanic heart of Milwaukee is actually a moving target, because the community itself is changing.
What would you think is the future as far as Latinx Milwaukee, Latinos, Latinas?
If more people understood the cultural connection it has, then it wouldn't be at such a risk for gentrification. We see it so often where a community can come together and really boycott or protest against the tearing down of a building or creating a historical marker. So I think that's what we need to do as far as learning and informing ourselves of, what are those different parts of Milwaukee. My Milwaukee looks like this, but your Milwaukee may look like this. The places that may be nostalgic for me aren't necessarily nostalgic for Scotty, but that doesn't mean that they don't both play an equal role in making the city what it is.
In terms of where are we going, look, we know that the fastest growing population in the state of Wisconsin is Latinos, is the Latino population. I hope we continue to celebrate, honor, to archive these distinctive features of various cultures, like in the Hispanic community. I would be devastated if we lost that.
After chasing the heart of Hispanic Milwaukee for 3 episodes, from Holy Cross Cemetery, where Rafael Baez is buried, and amateur historian Arnoldo Sevilla looks after his legacy, to Hamburger Mary's, where drag queens like Marbella are making safe spaces for LGBT folks, to the Church of the Gesu, where I caught whispers of the life of an organist from Dean Rosko. I guess what I'm realizing is that change is inevitable. We get older, neighborhoods get gentrified, and organs get renewed. But the issue of legacy has more to do with how we show up in a space. Don Arnoldo shows up recording histories to learn from the past. Marbella shows up in wigs and heels to live into the moment. And Dean Rosko spreads the gospel of the organ at churches, bars, and stadiums to uplift our spirits. Here at Speaking Of, we're trying to show up to these chronicles with questions that explore Milwaukee from different perspectives. I'm Mariano Avila, and you're listening to Speaking Of, a podcast by Milwaukee PBS. Our sound engineer is Grant Martin, and my co-hosts are Alexandra Mack and Scotty Myers. Scotty, who's up to the mic for the next 3 episodes of these cronicas, and bridging my 3 cronicas with his 3 in the most Scotty way imaginable. So I'm leaving you with a clue. Catch you next time.
Well, and I do want to say, one of the things, Dean Rosko is a very busy guy, and I kind of crept up on him right when he was in the middle of travels and things. So one of the things that I wanted to do was to get some of Rafael Baez's surviving music and get him to play it, but it was just not possible given his schedule. So...
Wait, I might have a little something for you. So you just hold on.
Little did y'all know that Scotty plays the organ.
I only listen to it. Sorry.